But yeah, you want to go give Tucker a call?
Yeah, let's ring him in. Our
Hopefully he's ready to roll.
resident Mississippi State baseball expert and fan.
Yeah.
Um,
Scours the message boards.
he's been huge for us throughout the calling process.
I'm pretty excited. I think he's going to come in with a lot of energy.
Tucker, you are live on Technical Foul.
I'll be honest, Jack. I was going to come in with a lot more energy when I thought you knew my name.
Yeah, that's on me. I don't know why I Hunter out of nowhere. That's my bad. My bad, Tucker. But yeah, how
No,
you
it's all
doing?
good. It's all good. I'm a lot better after Sunday night. I'll tell you that.
Sure.
Absolutely.
I knew this was going to be the case. That I told Sanders it multiple times. I was like, as soon as y'all lose, no one's going to care because it's coaching search season in full force, and then y'all didn't even have to wait long. It was an hour after y'all lost, and everyone knew it was coming because plane tracking is a thing. So we had to start. Mississippi State's plane was in the air en route to Charlottesville, and I think before the game ended, it had turned around and was coming back. And you just kind of felt like on board with Mississippi State's new coach, Brian O'Connor, and sure enough, that came true very quickly. But initial thoughts on the hire, Tucker, and how the staff has been rounded out around him?
Okay, yeah. On your point about like it diminishing the sting of the regional loss, I feel like the news like soft broke on Thursday,
Sure.
where it was like it's not done, but it's looking like it's going to be this. I feel like that made just like the whole regional was just if we win, that's great. If we lose, we get Brian O'Connor. So who really cares in
Yeah.
the end?
You even had
Um,
On3 delete their tweet that it wasn't even just like, deals are being finalized. I think the tweet was Brian O'Connor is the new head coach of Mississippi State baseball, and then they deleted it.
yeah, I think you're right. I think you're right. So I mean, kind of like we talked about in that conversation about the candidates, this is the best name that State could have hired
Yep.
because Jim Schlossnagle wasn't taking the call. Tony Vitello wasn't taking the call.
Brian O'Connor's a better
Coaches that
coach
would,
than Slosh anyway. No bias there, but
I think you could definitely argue that. I don't know. I've seen a lot of people really respect Schloss in the past like couple years, basically since he got to A&M.
yeah.
Uh, so I mean, I'm not gonna fight you and say that Schloss is better because Brian O'Connor's my coach now. But this is the best hire State could have made. I think this might be getting too big picture too fast, but I think it makes a lot of sense or I guess it doesn't make a lot of sense. Like State has had ads that come from Mississippi State, like Larry Templeton and John Cohen, and it seems like State finally has an athletic director that views Mississippi State as a place that should matter, if that makes sense.
Sure. I have enjoyed
Like,
a bit of the 180 the fan base has done on Selman post this hire, which, I mean, is somewhat deserved because this is a home run hire. But I do feel like there were a lot of people that weren't the biggest fan of him, and then he makes this hire and posts his maroon smoke gif, and now everyone's in love with him. But, I mean, once again, it is deserved because he went out and got done what needed to be done, so.
100%. I think a lot of the stuff Selman's done has been behind the scenes,
Yeah.
and like a lot of fundraising stuff with raising money. Like we see all these tweets about like, oh, this person's given $1 million. Now we got $2 million. All of this stuff, and none of that money like directly leads to wins. Like we don't get that, and then that means we're going to win on Saturday.
It helps, though.
So it's hard to really see the fruits of that until like down the line.
Sure.
But you see it in a hire like this.
Yeah. In terms of, so Brian O'Connor is the new head coach. Can you give us who he's kind of been rounding out his staff with? I know he's brought a couple people from UVA. Still looking for a hitting coach, I believe, or not a pitching coach, I believe. Unless I missed that
Yes.
one. It's been announced he's not bringing the UVA guy. I know the Wake Forest guy's name has been floated around. But yeah, who all is kind of rounding out the staff around him?
Yeah, so it seems like he's basically brought everyone with him from Virginia except the pitching coach.
Okay.
So the main guys, I don't know like the whole staff, all their names, but the
Sure.
main guys, I'll say Kevin McMullen, the hitting coach, has been with him since he got to Virginia. He's been there the whole time.
That's crazy.
I think he's won like assistant coach of the year multiple times and all this stuff. It kind of surprised me. You would think that that guy would be a head coach by now, but
Yeah,
he seems to just kind of be comfortable coaching underneath O'Connor.
sure.
I think Matt Kirby is the other assistant coach title
Yeah,
that'll be coming with him. I think he coaches catchers and is the recruiting coordinator. And then, like you said, so the pitching coach isn't coming with him. The two names that seem to be floating around are Corey Muscara from Wake Forest. If you had told me when we first talked that Corey Muscara ended up being the head coach at Mississippi State, I think most people would have been fine with that.
yeah,
A lot of people would say he's the best pitching coach in the country. He recruits really well. He's a big reason why Wake Forest was a few outs away from playing for a national championship a couple years ago. And he's built this Wake Forest pitching lab that's, I feel like it's almost like mythical now in college baseball. Like people just talk about it like it's not real.
yeah. They always got dudes.
But right, exactly. And it feels like every single one of their dudes like throw high 90s and have crazy breaking balls and everything. The other name is Justin Parker, who we all know. He's been the pitching coach here for 2 years, was the interim coach. And I don't know of anyone that said he didn't do a great job as the interim coach, navigating everything that's come with that. So it seems like O'Connor is going to make a run at Corey Muscara and try really hard to pull him from Wake Forest. And if that doesn't happen, he's just fine with Justin Parker being the guy, because Justin Parker's proven that he can develop guys.
Absolutely.
He can develop great pitchers.
He's put when Pico gets drafted, he'll have put 3 guys in the top 3 rounds of the MLB draft.
Yeah.
He's done an
Right.
excellent
And I would say
job.
and I would say that 2 of those guys, Cal Steven and Pico, weren't going to be draft guys before he got here.
Sure.
Absolutely.
And they worked with him.
You also got to look at it in the context of where the staff was when he took over, because if I'm not mistaken, that was the biggest issue with in the years y'all didn't make the tournament, was y'all could hit just fine, but y'all would just lose games like 10-6, 10-7. So not only to put a couple guys in the league, but when you look at that, he did that, on a quick turnaround, kind of with a disaster of a pitching staff prior. So definitely a very good fallback option. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. It just feels. I was talking to Sanders before he left, and they're doing this big old, I don't know, welcome event. I guess Brian Connor welcome event. They're pulling out all the stops. He says on SEC Network Plus. I saw they're opening up Left Field Lounge.
Mm-hmm.
You can grill. You can bring in your coolers. They're opening up the concession stands. I feel like that's also a sign of the fact that they're pivoting / they understand what baseball means to Mississippi State fans, and the importance of it, and kind of hopefully the monetary focus they're going to give to it. Because when O'Connor was hired, it was pretty quickly that he got a big contract, but also they're going to be very aggressive with NIL with him, and I think that's a very good sign. It just kind of heightens excitement around the hire, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think so. As far as the welcome thing, I think this is just like a Zach Selman thing.
Gotcha.
He had something similar with Jeff Levy, where they did it outside of the Seal building, and they Keenum and Selman and Levy they played wrestler walkout music as they walked out of the Seal building onto the stage and all this stuff. So I think this is just something he likes to do to drum up a lot of excitement for new coaches and
Gotcha.
new starts and everything. I think you're right though about the resources. I don't know if I would necessarily say that it's diverting resources. I think that it's just a lot more money is coming in.
Yeah.
That over the last few years, there are a lot of people that really care about Mississippi State baseball, and the product the last few years has really inspired them to give money. From everything I've been able to read, this isn't Zach Selman's taking money out of football or men's basketball because State fans want to win in baseball.
Sure.
He's been, as far as I can tell, his biggest thing is that football and men's basketball need to win because that's what props up the rest of your athletic department, which is true. I think in the long run, Mississippi State can make money off baseball, but the best case scenario is that it pays for itself and maybe a little extra.
Yeah. It's pretty well documented that college baseball programs lose money, with the exception being some SEC schools, and maybe a couple ACC ones. I don't really know how that works out anymore with NIL, and like how not all of that is probably really reported. Um, so you could think that a baseball program's operating in the green, and it's simply not because there's a couple extra million in NIL going out that we don't know about. So it's just kind of hard to know. But that is a good point. It is tough for state fans potentially, depending on who you ask. That all this excitement is here, and you have to wait a calendar year, 8-9 months to kind of see it play out on the field. And you may have to go through another pretty brutal football season to get there as well. Depends on who you ask. JP's over here shaking his head. Surely not 2-10 again, but
There's some maybe and mights on that schedule. I've already called out 2
true.
in our group chat.
Um,
But we'll see. Tucker, there's been a lot of positive so far since Sunday. You, right now, are there any doubts in the back of your mind going forward with Brian O'Connor?
I don't have any doubts that Mississippi State will be better than they've been for the past 4 years. I think that it's fair to ask if Brian O'Connor can necessarily become what LSU is right now and what Arkansas is right now and what Texas
Sure.
is right now. As far as I feel like those programs can say every year we will be a national seed and not really think much about it. Like you don't really have to look at the roster. You just know that that's what they're going to be. I think that's a fair question to ask.
Yep.
But I would put money on Mississippi State's going to be in the postseason every year. They're going to be in the hosting discussion basically every year. And I don't even feel like that's a bet. I feel like you can take that to the bank. And then it's just, what is that ceiling going to look like? Because one thing, if there was a knock on O'Connor the last few years, I feel like they've had a lot of postseason success, but they haven't necessarily had the in-season success that Mississippi State fans expect as far as being a national seed every year kind of thing. They've been able to make these runs to Omaha, but that's when they were, like last year, they were the number 12 national seed. They've made a couple runs as like a 2-seed or a 3-seed in a
Sure.
regional all the way to Omaha, which is great once you get to June, but there's also going to be a lot of frustration in March and April and May.
It's also a
get to that
thing
point.
too of with how good the SEC is. You can't really stumble through conference play and try and find your stride late. There's a good chance you'll just lose too many games and miss the tournament altogether, because each week is a grind. There's not really, you don't get I feel like I'm throwing shade, but like you don't get to go play Boston College. You may get Missouri on the schedule, but like it's just there's just no easy wins to pick up when you're struggling. So that is something to keep an eye out on. That, and also talking about concerns. And this is me like trying to find a concern, so I'm not like saying this is what's going to happen or this could, but it's just very much a changing landscape. And we've seen him. I mean, they didn't make the tournament this year, Virginia, that is, where Brian O'Connor is from. And we have seen before, like, you bring a guy in, you give him all the money he needs, he builds this crazy staff, and that's just like not. I don't know. It just like doesn't click, or it just kind of collapses. I don't think that's what's going to happen. But it is a thing like money doesn't necessarily solve everything, and in some cases it can actually create more issues. Seems like a great coach. I mean, he had fantastic success at Virginia, so I'm not saying that's what's going to happen, but there just always is that chance. So
For sure. And I think this is also the first job where he's really had expectations.
Yeah.
At Virginia, they had no history, and by the time they had what you could call expectations, he was the one that brought them there. So there was never any like job pressure for him as far as, is he gonna be able to keep his job?
that's a great point.
He could have stayed there for the rest of his career if he wanted,
Yeah.
and never made another regional, and they would have just been fine with it. And I think, but at Mississippi State, say he misses a regional the next 2 years for some reason, which I don't expect to happen, then going into year three, everyone's going to be looking around like, we gave you all this money, we gave you all this NIL, and here we are, and we have the same results. How does he respond to something like that if that were to happen? I feel like that's definitely a fair question.
Yeah, no, that's
I think
a great
as a
point.
general rule, like pressure is a privilege for a lot of these coaches, like expectations, like you want to have expectations, but it's also a different challenge that he hasn't really had to face.
Yeah, no, for sure. Kind of last thing I want to ask as we look to wrap this up. Any news on the transfer front? I know Virginia's had a lot of players enter the transfer portal. I know you're kind of big on following that stuff and keeping your ears to the ground. Even some UVA guys have entered with do not contact tags. So do you expect a lot of those guys to follow? Have you heard any kind of rumblings about any kind of near commitments in that regard or anything of that nature?
Yeah, so I've heard that most people expect by next Monday, so a week from 2 days ago, that State will at least have a few players in the boat.
Sure.
Like the most likely of those would be some of those Virginia guys that kind of knew where they were going when they were leaving. I'm blanking on his name right now. It starts with a V, but he's a left-handed pitcher from Virginia. It sounds like he's really close
Okay.
to committing.
Yeah.
Eric Becker is a shortstop that's really good for Virginia. I don't know if he's one that's going to hop in really quickly, but I think that he's kind of penciled in to come to Mississippi State. I would say that any one of the guys that has left Virginia, if he has decent stats or you see like a tweet that comes by that says this guy has a lot of potential or he'll be a big name, he's at least going to hear Mississippi State out before he makes a choice to go somewhere else.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, and to kind of add to the excitement for State fans, this is a UVA team that was ranked number 2 preseason. And while that obviously didn't come together, that indicates there's a large amount of talent on this roster. So the idea of a lot of that talent finding its way to Starkville, it really adds to the excitement. I mean, we'll see. I mean, some of them are draft eligible, like Henry Ford entered the portal. Once again, he is draft eligible. I'm trying to find the guy you were talking about starts with V, because it's kind of going to drive me crazy.
Valencius, maybe, is his name? Something like that?
Yeah, that sounds right. Gosh, I'm not going to be able to find it. But yeah, it really should be exciting. It does suck that we have to wait 8 months to get there. But honestly, that'll just add to the excitement. I can't wait. I'm not a State fan, but I may have to find my way into Duty Noble for the kind of the opening weekend, because it's going to be hopping. It's going to be packed.
We'll have to get you there, Jack. I wanted to ask you about this before I go.
Sure.
This is a little bit of a different subject. But what are your thoughts on keeping Michael Early?
Sure.
Because I saw, I think it was in Kendall Rogers' tweet, that he kind of alluded to some back channeling to other coaches, that it seemed like it didn't work out with them, and so they chose to keep Early. That's the way I read it anyways. I don't know if you had heard anything different or thought anything different.
Yeah, I can touch on it real quick. That's exactly what I heard too. And alluding to that same tweet, it definitely makes it sound that way. It's not the best look in that regard, because it's like we basically come out and the AD makes the statement of like, after talking with Michael Early and like his vision, like we're confident he can lead us to where we need to go. And it's like, well, but clearly you weren't actually that confident, because you kicked the tires on a couple names and just couldn't find anything you liked. In terms of us keeping Michael Early and how I feel about it, I'm fine with it to give it one more ride. I would have preferred to go a different direction, but I do think that there is a head coach in there somewhere, a successful head coach, and he didn't put it together this year. And I guess I'm just hoping he can learn from his mistakes. There's been some staff shakeups, and that it'll kind of click. Because we were very talented this year. There was no consistency. I saw a tweet yesterday which made me mad. There are 4 SEC teams left in the tournament, right? We won the series against 3 of them, and then the one we didn't play in the regular season, Auburn, we beat them in the regular season in the SEC tournament. So just no
That's crazy.
consistency. But we had some highs. I'm just hoping he can put it together. But I agree, it's not really a great look when it sounded like your AD was kind of sneaking around, and then decided to stick with the guy. It kind of sounds like he's not the biggest fan of him. So I think it also
Yeah, we'll see how it turns out.
last point on that. I think it's just a sign that baseball isn't our thing. We've had a very good baseball program, but it's never going to be a priority. Like Mississippi State wouldn't have let this slide in a lot of ways. I feel like. Obviously, you can say, well, Lamona's had a couple terrible years and he stuck around, but it's also like he just won y'all a natty, so it's a different scenario. But yeah, it's not great. I think I'm just a little dead to the pain, if that makes sense, and to the disappointment. It's almost like, well, this is where we are, so like, what's one more year of being disappointed?
That's fair. I understand that. I understand it from that perspective. I would definitely. I'm not trying to take shots at A&M, but I would definitely be scared of Trev Alberts making a hire.
Yeah,
I don't really know how he got from Nebraska to A&M, but
I'm not the biggest Trev Alberts guy at all. Haven't been since we hired him. He's another guy I think we hired to help us navigate the changing landscape, and keep us from losing a bunch of money, if that makes sense. And then maybe when everything settles down, he may get fired, or we'll just stick with him. But I really think it was a money move and not a winning move to hire him from Nebraska. So it is what it is.
Gotcha.
And it is I already said last thing on Early, but he also is a nice guy. And obviously, like, I need wins more than anything. But it's a lot easier to stomach a guy sticking around when all the players love him, and he just seems like a good guy. So
Oh yeah, always. That's why I've always, people will say, being a nice guy doesn't help you win, but when you lose, it'll buy you time for sure.
it'll buy you time. It gives you a little spin zone. You can. I don't know. A&M is big on the Aggie values and all the loyalty in that, and I think it can get us into trouble sometimes when it comes to winning games. But it also is a pretty fun thing to be a part of at the same time. So, anything else you want to add before we let you go?
I think we just about covered it. I'm excited to see how this portal season goes. It'll give me something to watch as I put off watching Mississippi State football.
It's inevitable. There's no way
Yeah.
to not get excited. As an A&M fan that's disappointed a lot of years, as July turns to August, you kind of get that feeling in your chest once again. There's just nothing like it. So
Oh, for sure. I think y'all have talked about it too, but State should just aim for a bowl game this year. But by the time we get to Labor Day, I'll be expecting 8 wins, I'm sure.
JP, any thoughts on that? As someone that is a big proponent of keeping expectations low,
It's possible.
well, see, he's already there too. There is no by Labor Day. He's there.
I do think, like, it's possible.
Question for both of y'all before we let you go. Tucker, I almost said Hunter. Tucker, where would you rank Mississippi State's football team in the SEC in terms of roster talent? Because I had a coworker at lunch saying that y'all were probably gonna have a winning season. I was like very confident about that. And one, I don't
I'd
think
say
I don't think he's the most well known, but that's like a legitimate question. It was like, as you look to trying to win SEC games, like, where are y'all the worst talented? Do y'all have the least talented roster in the SEC?
no, I'd still put us above Vandy. I think Vandy does a lot of schematic things to give them
Okay.
an advantage, and they have a dog at quarterback. But I think roster talent, State has more than them. Other than that, it'd be tough. I think Kentucky would probably be close.
Sure.
Other than that, it'd be hard to find someone that State's better than roster wise.
Yeah, I think you could make an argument Arkansas
Okay.
is that low based off of their recruiting rankings the past 4 years. But yeah, it's not great.
I'll have to do some objective research because obviously this isn't how it works. But look at like stuff like blue chip ratio and returning production and stuff like that. Because yeah, I was just like, man, that's just obviously you can beat rosters that are more talented than you. But it's not just that some of these rosters are more talented than Mississippi State. It's some of these are grossly more talented than Mississippi State. So it makes the avenue
Yeah,
to making a bowl game a little more difficult. But if you clean up against your cupcakes and y'all play,
We don't necessarily play cupcakes this year
well,
either.
y'all gotta have like an FCS team or what's y'all's?
Southern
I think we
Miss,
play Alcorn, Southern Miss, Northern
Alcorn,
Illinois.
and Northern Illinois,
Okay.
and then the Sun Devils, who aren't going to be good this year, so
You saying that right now?
they're going to be good.
Yeah.
But
The Sun
we got a
Devils
chance
is a
to win the
tough
game.
Power 5 draw. But I'm just saying, if you can win those 3, you're halfway there.
And
For
we
sure. I think.
we
Oh,
we
sorry, go
might
ahead,
beat
JP.
Georgia, and we might beat Florida.
You said we are beating Florida.
I said we might.
Okay.
I quote me on that. I'm pretty sure I said
Okay.
we might.
Sounds good.
Something that hurts State as far as like ranking talent is I'd say the most talented player on the team is the third string quarterback.
Yeah.
So like if you're factoring in talent, maybe that raises State up, but he's not going to help State win this year.
Him or Tony Mitchell?
Ooh, that's a good point.
I as someone that is,
Yeah.
a fan of a school that was very, very involved in that recruitment, Tony Mitchell's a baller. Just decided to get busted for weed and drugs, or weed and guns, which is a tough
Yeah,
combo.
if he just listens to Stephen A, I think he'll be all right this year.
Yeah, facts. All right, thanks for joining, Tucker. I'm sure we'll have you back on the show at some point.
Most definitely.
It's always a good time when you call, but we'll let you go. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
All right, thanks guys. See you later.
Later.